Hey guys, this is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about vocal tones, and I specifically narrowed it down to 5 different kinds of things that you do with your body, I guess, that control your vocal tones for the most part. So, 5 things are, 1 is mouth, so anything that just goes like this, including your lips, all that stuff, and then 2 would be your soft palate. So, I hope my teeth are clean. Then the back, you see that thing that moves up and down? Yeah, well that thing, that's your soft palate. It's where your little uvula dangles from, or I think it is. But anyways, when you're doing like a really nasally kind of voice, that's because you're kind of closing that down and more of the air is going through your nose, and so it makes it sound nasally. Makes sense, right? And then when you have it up, it's blocking the air from going through your nose, so it all comes out your mouth. It's just like, oh, and it's thicker. The nasal sound is a little whinier than the open all throat sound, right? So 3, I'm just kind of going down the vocal tract. 3 would be your false chords. False chords are the chords that are vocal chords are like here-ish. I'm too chubby to see my Adam's apple, but vocal chords and Adam's apple, false chords above vocal chords. General info to find where everything is. That's how you add rasp to your voice without hurting yourself. Or that's how you scream. And, depending on how you add rasp to your voice will change the tone of your voice, right? So going further down to the actual vocal cords themselves, which I would call voice type. And I would call it voice type simply because that's sure what kind of voice you're singing in. When you're talking low or average, or you're singing like, oh, that's all it's all your chest voice. It's called that because it mainly resonates in your chest and you can really feel it. But then you also have head voice, which like if you're singing like a high song, like I don't know what to be, like, hey, got those limbs, hold no virtue. All the high stuff's in head voice, and it resonates in your head, so like, hey! You can really feel your head resonating. And then you should slide down, so it goes like, I'll try to point out where the vibrations are. Hey! There we go. So, at some point, the vibrations come back in your chest, and, it moves, which is weird. I don't really get why. I'm assuming because bigger space corresponds to lower frequency because it's more space to resonate. Either way, so that really changes how you sound, because if you're singing high, you can pull your chest voice up, or you can go into head voice, and there's kind of this middle ground, which people call mid voice, which is kind of the transitional period. But anyways, so number 5, I would consider power. Because, you can talk like this, and it's perfectly fine, but you can talk like this, and it's even better. And this is all related to breath pressure. I'm gonna make a breathing video because it'll cover it more, but when you breathe, you should use your diaphragm, which is like this region, and I'll try to go sideways, so. When you inhale, you use your stomach. You don't want to be like. Now, there's a kind of an iffy area here because the diaphragm, when you inhale with your diaphragm instead of your chest, which is called chest breathing, you're filling up. So diaphragm, you fill up the lower 2/3 of your lungs. Yeah, the lower 2/3 of your lungs. With chest, you fill up the top 1/3. So diaphragm breathing works like 95% of the time. Don't need to worry about chest breathing, but if you have like a part in a song where there's like a 45-second long note or like a minute long scream, you may need more air. So you can use both. Now the key when you're doing that is inhale through the diaphragm first and work upwards. So you kind of just. So you first inhale stomach, and then when that's full, you kind of go up. Now for the most part, you can just use diaphragm breathing, and that will be good. Now I'll cover all that in another video in more depth. But for this, we're just talking about vocal tones. So we have 1 mouth, which is Then you have soft palate, which is like that stuff. And then you have false chord, which is like how much grit you're adding. And then moving on to voice type, you can have head voice, which is like hey. Then you can also pull up chest voice and be like hey. And you can hear the slight differences there, right? I hope so. Yes, you do. Right? All right. So moving on to power, which is really just breath control. Depending on how much push you're giving to your voice will change the vocal tone. Now, manipulating all these things is, it takes a while before you can just be like, oh, my voice sounds a little nasally. I gotta lift up my soft palate. Or like, I need a little bit more grit, so I'll add a little bit more grit. And that's where you come in. It's just, you get those 5 things and manipulate them to get the kind of vocal tone you want. And that's basically it with vocal tone. Everything else is just genetics, really, because this is going to sound racist, but black people have bigger nasal cavities. They also, they have bigger nasal cavities. They're generally bigger people. Not all the time, of course. So they generally will have a thicker vocal tone and maybe even naturally better tone. And the vocal cords are even bigger. From what I've heard, from this is not a racist thing. But then, every race has a certain vocal characteristic to it. And then also, every person within that race has their own unique vocal characteristics. Certain races sound more nasally, have thicker vocal cords, have thinner vocal cords. Everyone's different. And that's kind of the beauty of singing, that no matter how good you are or how well you can manipulate these 5 things to make your voice sound good, your voice will still sound unique. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think of it as a good thing. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that if you're listening to Hootie and you're a white guy like me and you're trying to sing like, oh, I want to be with you, you can probably get close, but there's a certain barrier that you really just can't cross. Or if you're just like a 6-foot tall dude or versus like a 4-foot tall dude. Like a freakishly tall person versus a midget. If you get those 2 people, no matter what they do, there is no way that other person will be able to copy the other person 100%. That's just, there's a big genetic part in how you sing. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Yeah, you can talk like this, and it's perfectly fine, but you can talk like this, and it's even better. Which I would call vocal type. I call it vocal type because, which I would call voice type. That's basically for vocal tones. If you have any questions, leave me a comment or send me a message. If you like this video, leave a like, favorite, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I will talk to you in a later vocal lesson, and have a fantastic day.
We're here, we're watching, praying with the world, but there's nothing here left to rust into. And people are burning their ashes in the sky as we sit and wallow. It has to be alive.